Hey, what is up, Online Empire Academy? All right, this is take number 2. I was not able to, I realized that once you start a live, I was not able to share my screen, and I really wanted to be able to do that. And so let me just share real quick this with a couple of people. Since I just went live, go back and I'm going to share this in the group. Hold on one second. Do some sharing. Sharing is caring. Bam. Let's go. I'm going to share it to the Online Empire Academy Mastermind. Not part of the Online Empire Academy Mastermind group, search Online Empire Academy Mastermind and join that Facebook group. And then I'm going to share it to the Dream Dropshipping group. If you're not a part of Dream Dropshipping, at least that group, the only way to join that group is to purchase Dream Dropshipping, where you will learn how to make some good money on Amazon doing dropshipping. Nothing beats free inventory. All right, Dream Dropshipping, boom, we should be all good. There we are, posting, yes. All right, we are all good. All right, guys, so I am so excited to be here with you. I wanted to do this quick recap. We have done a couple of videos, Brad and I wanted to get Brad on here in the Online Empire Academy for several reasons. One being that he absolutely changed my life a few years ago, and he continues to change my life. We work very closely together, and we're constantly bettering each other. But one thing that he showed me was really how to get unstuck. I was in a very bad place for a long time, and had it not been for him, I probably would have gone totally downhill and lost all of my businesses and so on and so forth. So kudos to Brad. You are a lifesaver. I told you many times that that's the case, and I really appreciate it. So first things first, if you have not seen the other videos that we have, go to the Online Empire Academy Facebook page. There are 2 videos that we've done so far. The first one was, how do you even know when you're stuck? The second one was, how is avoiding versus investigating your stories, which you might not know what we mean by stories if you have not seen those other 2. But I wanted to actually just do kind of a recap video so far. We're going to do one more. We're going to actually do one more video tomorrow on all of this, and then later on in the week, we're going to end up doing a deep dive training on a webinar with Brad, where he'll be able to answer all of your questions and everything like that. And he's going to teach some really amazing things that'll take you to the next level, okay? All right, so first things first, if you know someone who is stuck, if you know someone who is in a place that is not helpful to them, that is not in their best interest, please share this with them. It might be the difference between life or death. It might be the difference between success and failure. It might be the difference between a marriage that sticks and a marriage that breaks apart. And I'm not joking. These are things that I've gone through. These literally life or death things that I've gone through, where like I said, I was in a very bad place, and had it not been for these things that Brad's teaching, I probably would have gone off the deep end in many ways. All right, so please share this with someone. I'm asking you right now to share this with someone, okay? All right, so external versus internal. This is what this whole thing is about, Unstuck recap, because people are probably thinking, hey, this is the Online Empire Academy. You guys are supposed to teach me the latest business model. You're supposed to teach me, how to drop ship on Amazon, or how to do sales funnels for my products, or how to sell whatever it is I want to sell online, right? Well, that's great. Those are good, and that is definitely what we do here at the Online Empire Academy, for sure. That is absolutely true. That is great, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Oh, did I? Let me see if I did what I was supposed to do. I did not. Okay, let me edit this post. That is great. But the problem is that there is a big difference between internal and external training. Okay, big difference between internal and external training. Which one is better? So ask yourself right now, I'm asking you, and then I want you to also ask yourself, which one is better? Internal or external training? Now, it's actually a little trick question because both are actually great and both are very, very useful. But they're only great and they're only useful when you understand what they both are, okay? When you understand what they both are. Generally speaking, internal is going to be much more powerful, all right? Internal is going to be much more powerful, but it's not as sexy. I mean, what would you rather see? Would you rather see something like how to make $5,000 a day selling, exotic race cars? Of course, you'd probably love that. That's an external thing, right? Learn how to do that. That'd be awesome. Or would you rather see that, or would you rather see how to break through all of the barriers that have kept you from your full potential? Probably not as sexy, but ultimately the internal is what's going to get you really the results that you would get from external. I can't tell you how many people have purchased dream drop shipping, and out of all of the people who have purchased it, I would say probably about 20% have actually done it, have actually taken action, and the other 80% either tried and didn't do the full process, or they didn't do anything at all. Now, is that an external problem or an internal problem? Those people who were successful with dream drop shipping were successful because they had the internal drive to actually do something. And I'm going to share this story with you with a guy named Brandon who bought the dream drop shipping course not too long ago. I would say about a year and a half ago. And the way that I thought, so he basically exceeded my expectations, and because I was telling myself some stories, but because of his internal drive, he was able to do some amazing things with dream drop shipping, which we'll talk about in not too long from now. Okay, so internal versus external. Internal generally tends to be more powerful, but external the external are the tools and skills that you learn from a particular course, program, things like that. It might be school, it might be whatever it is. You're learning these tools, you're learning that they exist, you're learning how to market, you're learning how to advertise, you're learning how to sell, you're learning how to deal with suppliers, you're learning how to do all of those things. And it's basically putting those tools in front of you and showing you, hey, this actually works. These tools, this is what this tool does. This is what that tool does. Okay. However, the internal is how you are able to use those tools, how you personally are able to use those tools. So I might show you a chainsaw or a hammer and say, hey, this is a hammer. You can hammer some nails, or you can cut down a tree. And you can even see me do those things. Okay. But if you don't personally take that chainsaw in your hand, go over to a tree, turn on the chainsaw, and actually use it, that tool is 100% worthless to you. It might make thousands of dollars to somebody who's a lumberjack, but to you, who does not even intend to use it at all, it's just sitting in your garage doing nothing, it becomes useless. it becomes worthless. In fact, more often than not, you'll actually end up losing money because of maintenance and because it's not being used and so on and so forth. It's just taking up space in your garage. So we really need to work on, first and foremost, the internal, so that we know, not just know how to use the tools, but that we have the actual drive and the potential to use those tools. Okay, so investing time and effort in yourself, in your internal, I wouldn't say by far, because they both have their, you can't because given the chainsaw analogy, you can't learn how to use a chainsaw if you don't have the chainsaw. But you also can't learn how to use a chainsaw if you don't actually use the chainsaw. If you don't intend to use the chainsaw, you don't have the desire or the drive to use the chainsaw. Okay, and so more often than not, the more important thing to learn is actually how to have the motivation or the drive to use the chainsaw. Okay, so we want to work on that internal first prior to the external. Okay, so I can't tell you how many people chase after shiny objects, myself included, hoping that business model is going to work, but then they get that business model and do nothing with it, when it could have made them thousands of dollars. Okay, so the big thing with the internal, moving on, is we end up finding ourselves stuck. Or I should say, we end up becoming stuck in some way or another. Sometimes we don't even realize that we are stuck, which is crazy. Sometimes we don't even know that we are stuck. So the first video that we did, if you go to the Online Empire Academy Facebook page, you'll see that the first video was just how to know when you are stuck, because sometimes we just don't know. All right. Some ways that you know is desires don't match with facts. Okay. You might constantly desire a new house or a new job or a new this or new that. But right now, the fact is you don't know how to sell. You don't know how to leave your full-time job. You don't know how to get that full-time job. You're living in a place that you don't want to be. And so that discrepancy between the desire and facts, or desire and expectations, maybe cause unwanted habits or cause the feeling of being bad. It can lead to alcoholism. It can lead to watching too much TV. It can lead to sedating in some fashion or another, or getting frustrated, or doing things like even getting burnout and burning down your entire business. Yes, that can happen because we're stuck and we don't realize that we're stuck sometimes. You feel like there's supposed to be something more, but you don't even realize necessarily that you're stuck. So when you start feeling those really uneasy feelings, the first thing you can do is realize, hey, if I'm feeling uneasy like this, or I'm feeling frustration, or I'm feeling some kind of feeling that I just do not prefer right now, is realizing that that feeling is there to help you to realize that you're telling yourself a story. Now, Brad talked about this. Brad talks about how you're telling yourself a story, and that the story is not necessarily bad, and it's not necessarily good. You don't need to judge the story as good or bad, but recognize that there is a story. For example, you might be in your full-time job and you're desiring to move and create your own business. Well, you're telling yourself a story, potentially, that your full-time job is not where you're meant to be. You're telling yourself a story that your boss at your full-time job is a micromanager. And he might be, and he might not be, depending on what the reality is, what the facts are. You might be telling yourself that I was made for something more. I want to be an entrepreneur. I know for me, that's what I had. My story was I want to be an entrepreneur, but I can't really build something that's big, or I couldn't possibly be in front of people on a camera. So I went and did like an IT type thing when I first started. There's no way I could be this internet guru or whatever. And, look at me now. It's kind of crazy. because I tell myself a different story. We all have these stories and they protect us in some way. Okay. They protect us in some way, but they also hold us and keep us back out of that protection. Okay. So the reason why you're not in that house that you desire is because you're telling yourself a story that maybe you don't deserve that house yet, or you don't have the skills to get to that house yet, or a story of I need to be a blogger, or I need to go start an online business, when really all you need to learn is sales, but you're telling yourself a story that sales equals used car salesman. Okay. So it might be something like that where it's holding you back. But these stories are there, as Brad says in those videos. Go check them out on the Online Empire Academy Facebook page. That they're there to give us a framework of protection, a framework to live our life. If we didn't have those stories, we would be going crazy. But at the same time, those stories do keep us in prison sometimes. Okay. The cool thing is stories can be changed, as Brad points out. I'll give you an example with one of the stories I had. We recently interviewed Brandon, who had purchased Dream Dropshipping a long time ago. And for me, a big story that I had was that, one, I could not create a product that's going to be of value. I'm not going to create a product that's going to be life-changing. Even if I did create a product, it's people would eventually see through that it's not really what it is. I'm going to create, if I couldn't create a product that is going to, change the lives of, hundreds of people. I couldn't, like all these different things. I couldn't get in front of people. I couldn't pitch on a webinar. I couldn't do all these things. That was the story, because here I am, Dean. I should be in the background. I shouldn't be out in forefront. That's the way I am. I'm shy. I'm introverted. All those different things. Those are all stories. All stories that I was telling myself. Okay. Now, Brandon, when we interviewed him, one of the first things that he said was that after he got Dream Dropshipping, or because of Dream Dropshipping, I should say, because he implemented Dream Dropshipping, he had the internal desire and drive to actually implement it. Because of Dream Dropshipping, if it wasn't for that program, he would be living under a bridge. Whoa, that's pretty powerful. And do you think my story changed after that? Yeah, my story definitely changed after that. But this story has been going on for a long time of me of Dream Dropshipping. This is after multiple people having success with it, right? But that story lingered and lingered and lingered. But now, through looking and then investigating that story, and especially when Brandon's like, you basically changed my life with this program, the facts show that my old story of not being worthy, essentially, was wrong. And that if I wanted to get to the next level, I have to start telling myself a different story, that my products are amazing. My products are life-changing. Just because 80% of people don't have the desire or the drive to implement them doesn't mean that the products are bad. Doesn't mean that the products will not change someone's life, because multiple lives have been changed. Not just Brandon, it's been Tara, Tim, tons of different people, Gene. But it took me really investigating and seeing and looking at that story I was telling myself to really, really start changing it. Okay? So avoiding versus investigating. I avoided a lot with Dream Dropshipping and with many stories. We always, men in the West tend to avoid their stories that they tell themselves. So we're because we're used to doing rather than being, and we're so used to thinking that avoiding stories kind of feels right. That's not logical. All right, it's not just because I'm telling myself a certain thing, or just it's, you know, I can ignore it and I'll find some external thing to make it better. You know, the more that we avoid, and this is what Brad said in the second video, go check that one out on at the Facebook page. The more that we avoid these stories we tell ourselves, the longer we stay in that story. So if you're tired of where you're at right now and you feel like you've been there for a long time, well, guess what? If you keep on avoiding that story that you're telling yourself, that you might not even realize that you're telling yourself, you're going to continue to stay there. You're going to continue to stay there. There's no other way around it, unfortunately. You're going to continue to stay there, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse until you can get to until you get to a breaking point where hopefully you start investigating that story. But sometimes people get to a breaking point where they ruin something in their life. And you don't want that. Nobody wants that. So when we start investigating these stories, and Brad's going to be talking a lot more about this in the training that's coming up. If you go to www.unstucklab.com, that's the training link. When you register there, you'll be registered for the training. We'll be talking a lot about this. So when we investigate why we believe a certain story, we're able to become the commander of our ship. This is why God created us. He didn't create us to be robots. He created us to be kings. He created us to be, and whatever your religious belief is, I'm Christian, but he created us to be kings of our own kingdom and to bring his kingdom. And so we're able to be in command. And we're able to determine if the story is actually true or not, if it's factual or not. And it allows us to see alternatives. Because that story that you're telling yourself, oh, I want to be a full-time entrepreneur, might not be the case. Maybe you just want financial freedom. Well, guess what? You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have financial freedom. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to where their full-time job, maybe their expenses, their personal expenses are $3,000 to $5,000, but their full-time job salary, they're making $10,000 or $15,000, which gives them $5,000 to $10,000 extra dollars per month to invest in things like first trust deeds and real estate and promissory notes and all of those other things. If I were in their shoes, not so much now, but when I first started my entrepreneur stuff, I would have been like, and I knew that that was an alternative, because for me, I just want financial freedom. I don't necessarily want to be doing business all the time. So that's just me. That's my thing. It's why I invest in real estate and promissory notes and things like that. If I were them, I would be putting, a year's worth, 2 years, 3 years worth of that extra $5,000 to $10,000 in all of those investments after about 2 to 5 years, depending, within that time frame, they'd be financially free. Because you figure they could buy in St. Louis or Memphis or even Florida in some cases, you can buy a house with a down payment of $25,000, $30,000. They can buy a house every 3 months. So that's 4 houses a year, each house bringing $250 a month. They can quickly start building up a pretty amazing portfolio, especially if they start paying off those loans quickly. And yeah, definitely within 2 to 5 years, they could be totally financially free and never have to work again. But because they're telling themselves this story of, oh, I need to be this entrepreneur, I need to start my full-time business, I need to do this, it's causing them to actually miss what they actually desire in the first place. So as we move into video number 3, which will come tomorrow, and we move into the deep dive training, I really want you to take some time and start asking yourself, are you telling yourself stories right now? And are you avoiding those stories and investigating those stories? And if so, how are you doing that? Are you avoiding it by sedating yourself with alcohol or some other means? It could be watching the news all the time or being in politics all the time, things like that. Are you avoiding it by completely just ignoring it and thinking it's going to be all right? What stories are you telling yourself right now that you're not investigating, that you're not seeing, and you're not really diving into? Because it's going to be very important for you to do that in the next video as well as in the training. Otherwise, you're just going to be spending your valuable time doing absolutely nothing other than listening and not changing anything. So look forward to seeing you in the next video. If you're ready for the deep dive training, it's free. It's coming up. Go to www.unstucklab.com, www.unstucklab.com. Oops. Share this with somebody who you think needs it, who's stuck right now, who needs to be in a better place. And if you're not on the email list yet, go to theonlineempireacademy.com. Join our email list. You'll get a free thing as well there, and you'll get emails inviting you to these trainings and the videos that are upcoming. All right, so share this with someone you know who's stuck, and we'll see you in the next video.